Around, the winner came into day 2, loser went home. Reiji's been on a tear the whole tournament. So if Isaiah's got to the point where they're playing against Reiji, that means that they are having a very, very nice day 2. Day 2 is going pretty gosh darned well. You know, these are two players to really watch in that race to get into top 8. But I think you're right, Joe. That Rapid Strike Urshifu, we've seen it time and again. Dunsparce, Manaphy. If you're playing one of them, it's really awkward. If you're playing 2 of them, we have seen Rapid Strike Urshifu. We've seen it a lot this weekend, and decks that aren't playing those counters, it has been running through.
Yeah, it's actually going to be, well, in theory, smooth sailing for Isaiah. You have to think that he's favoured going into this matchup without those tech cards. We saw how he could stumble at points on stream yesterday, especially when there were the techs being played by John and timed appropriately. You know, when you're putting Dunsparce down in spots where it's protected from, or you're not expecting to be hit by a rapid flow. And we see even more of the Inteleon engine hitting the prizes now for Reiji, which is really awkward. Only playing 3 Drizzle in his list as well, so even more unlikely. So that might be extremely painful for him. We'll see how he can navigate those awkward prize cards.
We've seen a double Drizzle prize. Both players buys 2 Drizzle. Isaiah at this stage is going to be feeling very good that he's playing 2 of them. But yeah, Reiji here he's clearly an excellent player. You know, you do not get a 5th place finish at Worlds without being a phenomenal player. And, you know, coming all the way over here, it's a long journey. If you're going to make that journey, you've got to be confident. So you combine the Worlds finish with the obvious confidence and the record we've got here. And we are talking about clearly one of the top players in the room right now. But we are heading into the game. And Isaiah has gone and started that Persimmon. Fair to say, not your perfect starter?
No, the throwing coach, not as helpful as the likes of Sobble, but interesting that he's chosen to go first. We've seen a number of these Urshifu decks prefer to go second, to have Keep Calling available to them. But I think, Isaiah, if you know that you're against an Arceus deck, I think it makes a lot of sense to actually choose to go first yourself, because you know that Arceus won't put you under much pressure, and if you're able to establish an Urshifu and get an energy down, it's so advantageous. In this instance, Isaiah hasn't been able to do so. He's committed Dark Energy to his Sobble. He doesn't have much going on the hand this turn, but he at least has Drizzle for next turn.
Absolutely. And one thing that's interesting to know, if you've ever been to a big tournament, you will know this. By the time you get into the later rounds, if you're having a good run and you're around the top tables, you know what everybody's playing. Because it's an advantage to know what you're playing against before you play them, so you can pick the right starting Pokemon, you can think about the matchup before you get in there. There is no chance, really, that these players get to this stage and don't know what they're playing against before they get there.
Reiji just had a rapid turn. He didn't have any energy drop. He's just put down the Arceus V and passed it straight over to Isaiah, who can try and capitalize now. Isaiah going through his prizes by the looks of things, and now he's eyeing up the Urshifu. Not a huge fan of this sort of declumping that I'm seeing going on, but I think he's just doing it to help him count as much as possible. He's literally putting his energy to the back, his Pokemon to the front to check his prize cards. I think as long as we see a thorough shuffle, this is all going to be okay. It's just a quick way to shortcut your prize checking, and I think it's reasonable when you see so many one-offs in Isaiah's deck.
Absolutely. We got table judges there who are going to make sure that that deck is very much sufficiently randomized before we carry on with the game. And, you know, this is the point where Isaiah is going to be finding out that actually, oh, well, there's 2 Drizzle prized. Yeah. And that's important because it means that your use of Drizzle becomes so much more precise. When you've got 4 Drizzle available, you can make some smaller plays knowing you've got more Drizzle. When you've only got 2, you need to think, is this what I'm really trying to use it for? Because I'm not going to have one in a couple of turns' time. Is this the best use of my Drizzle?
And let's not forget, he plays a Peonia in his deck. So accessing those prize cards doesn't only come from taking knockouts. It could also be as early as, you know, this turn. He could activate that Peonia and seize 3 of his 6. So at the moment, we are seeing the shady dealings for Quick Ball. Going to grab him an Urshifu V, no doubt. It's already come to the top of his deck. He's getting one final search in. You can see he's got a notepad off to the side there, so there's no doubt that he is keeping track of these prizes as we go. And the Urshifu is going to come into play. One final search. Of course, you do get a few extra moments on your first search of the game. And we are going to see an energy search now to continue onwards, as I imagine we'll be seeing an energy drop either onto the Urshifu to start threatening that rapid flow, or potentially onto Persimmon, so you can retreat and get a Keep Calling going.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that one. So we do see the air balloon coming out. Retreats. Oh, look, it's Keep Calling.
Yeah.
Gonna funk it.
Seems good, and now he can get himself a backup Urshifu V and even more Sobble. I feel like you don't go double Sobble here ever, just because you know that there are so many prized Drizzile. But I do feel, yeah, this feels like the best board state you can possibly have. Unlike the European version, there is no 1/1 Octillery in this American-style build that we have seen a few players bring with us. So these seem to be the optimal targets, and yeah, a pretty nice full board. And we'll see if Reiji actually has turn 2 plays. I believe he was clutching onto an Ultra Ball that he was saving for a Starbirth here.
No, absolutely. And that does, you know, the lack of Octillery can be a little bit awkward. It does mean that potentially, you know, if you need to find that Rapid Strike energy in a pinch, then it is a little bit less available. We do go over to Reiji here, and there's not much going on at all. There is an Ultra Ball in hand, which is quite important. We've got a Raihan, which doesn't do much about a KO. We've got a Scoop Up Net. What Reiji's ended up with here is basically a bunch of cards that will be good later on in the game, but there's not much here. Of course, we have seen the evolution into Arceus V-Star, so like we see with his Arceus deck so much, if nothing else, we've got any 2 cards from the V-Star.
Can't be bad, right? That is definitely good to search your deck for some optimal cards. We did see him discarding a Raihan. He does play 1 Water Energy in his deck, but I don't believe he plays Melanie, so I don't think we're going to see an aggressive attack from the Arceus V-Star here. We are just going to see the Evolution Incense to grab Mustard. He's got himself down to 0 cards.
And here comes a Beedrill.
Yeah, it's another Beedrill, pre-Starbirth as well. So we're going to see the fist bump. Yeah, love to see it. This is probably the only way that Reiji could actually get a knockout on this turn. He's going to look to try and find a Grass Energy attachment and a Scoop Up Net. If it's not off the 5, he can always Starbirth.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen at least 1 Scoop Up Net hit the discard, but you know, there's going to be more. So, and it is kind of awkward, of course, because Isaiah is probably not going to leave any special energy on the board. He'll use them,
yeah,
but he'll use them to activate G-Max Rapid Flow and immediately discard them, and then they'll be gone. So there is your V-Star power, so Reiji can get whatever he wants. I think you're right, one of them has to be a Scoop Up Net. Pick up that Drizzile. Does give you a second use of Shady Dealings, which is nice. I believe...
I think they both came down this turn.
That was my question.
Yeah.
I couldn't just remember when they hit the board. But at least it'll set one up for next turn.
Yep.
And it lets you to pivot, get that Beedrill up. And it looks like we've got a Grass Energy coming in here. So just getting that quick, easy, cheeky KO on the Sobble.
Yeah, always nice to see. And I think he picked up an Ultra Ball potentially for next turn. So he may already have a pivot in mind here.
Absolutely.
So that he can get a prize. Because you don't have many attackers in this matchup. Your Arceus is vulnerable. You're not playing any protection for it whatsoever. So you've got to have your Beedrill coming in swinging. But perhaps not. We're actually seeing the double Turbo Energy pass by the looks of things from Reiji here. This could get easily punished by Isaiah.
Yeah, this absolutely could. All we're going to need here is... I mean, we've got the energy on the Sobble to retreat. So honestly, if you... I mean, here's the V-Max. If you've got access to your Rapid Strike energy in a boss's orders, that's going to be a KO. Oh, it's not going to quite be a KO. We have got that big charm on there.
Yeah, so there is a Drizzile in play. So it could become the... the Rapid Strike Inteleon instead. And here we're actually going to be the Sword and Shield Inteleon, so not going to be KO by the looks of things, but still going to be Boss's Orders and Scoop Up Net. I believe Isaiah does not play Galarian Zigzagoon.
Does he play Choice Belt? Is there a Choice Belt in the list?
Yeah, Choice Belt is another thing he could go searching
There's one Choice Belt in the list, so if he's able to find himself a Choice Belt, because he's clearly got the VMAX, he's clearly got the Boss's Orders, he's clearly got the Scoop Up Net.
That'll get him there as well, yeah.
Yeah, because he can Scoop Up Net the Inteleon and then evolve that Sobble into a Drizzile and use that to go and get the Choice Belt, which would then go...
already in hand.
Always got it in hand.
And Isaiah straight away says, give me that boy. You've got your Starbirth, but I'm not going to let you attack with him. And a Gale Thrust is so dangerous, the Choice Belt taking you up to 180 damage times 2, easily enough to take out this Arceus V-Star. And we are going to see that Shady Dealings coming back into play. It means that the Inteleon that's guaranteed in your hand is live once again. And I think Isaiah's just giving himself potentially a Bird Keeper for next turn, because you need to be pivoting these Urshifu if you want to get the full value out of them.
Absolutely. I mean, what we really need next turn is a Rapid Strike Energy. That would be amazing. Rapid Strike Energy could take out 2 of those weaker bench Pokemon, a couple of Sobble, Drizzile, whatever they might be, you know, and really take 4 prizes in 2 turns, while essentially locking Reiji out of his main attacker in terms of that Arceus. It's shaping up really nicely. And if you look at the deck list, this looks like a good matchup for Isaiah. This looks like they are absolutely in the driver's seat, because they're hitting for weakness. There's no Dunsparce. fast. They're hitting the bench. There's no mana fee. And there's nothing Reiji's got in his deck which particularly counters. There's not going to be any special energy left for the B-Drill to take advantage of. Arceus is just not a good attacker in this matchup. So there really isn't very much. I don't know what Reiji does here in terms of big attackers.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for Isaiah to punish pretty much anything Reiji's trying to do.
Yeah, and that's my question, really. If the Beedrill had attacked last turn, would Isaiah's play have been different? I still think he targets the Arceus just for those easy prize cards. Like, maybe he takes the Beedrill out of play if Reiji had discarded that Raihan, but I feel like you're not, like, you'd love seeing Arceuses in play, and it's just helpful for Isaiah, really, because this Beedrill can't do a lot. The Persist Sting is not online, so I think it's a Piercing Sting or Piercing Strike that just does like 110 damage. That's not dangerous for Isaiah's deck that is playing Cheryl.
No, not at all. And I think that is absolutely the point. If I'm Isaiah and the Beedrill does come and take the Sobble, I put the Drizzile active and I evolve it and I do the Shady Dealing shenanigans and then I scoop up that, which I was always going to anyway, and then I KO the Arceus.
Yeah, so the Beedrill is coming out. It's actually Jet Spear, of course, the 110 damage attack, discarding an energy from your own Pokemon. It's not the attack you normally try and use with Beedrill, but in this case it's the only option available. We're seeing Reiji opting to Pal Pad back in a Mustard as well as a Raihan. And let's see if he can do anything else to improve his board state here, which is looking pretty awkward, especially when you're staring down Urshifu that can start picking multiple Pokemon apart here.
Yeah, and the thing about that Jet Spear is, right, it's good against single-price Pokemon, your evolving Pokemon, support Pokemon, things like Cinccino, or things like Galarian Zigzagoon, or things like Mew from the Celebrations. It's great for taking cheeky prizes on them. It's not good against VMAXs, especially when they're not weak. So what we're going to see from Isaiah here, you know, it's a classic Rapid Strike Urshifu stuff. And Isaiah's been very clear. He is going Rapid Strike Urshifu this game. So we could see a pivot into just a new Urshifu to hit 150 and get a KO. I think the ideal has got to be getting that Rapid Strike energy, taking a KO on the Drizzile and a Sobble, and then you're really just a boss's orders away from KOing Arceus and getting the win.
Sounds good to me, yeah. There's not much that Reiji can do to disrupt this either. Potentially, Isaiah looks for like a Peonia play as well this turn, because I believe his second VMAX is in the top end of his prize cards, so we'll see what else he wants to do to navigate his late game. But as you said, the map this turn is looking pretty clear. As long as he has access to one of those Rapid Strike energy, it's going to be a pretty easy turn for him. As we're going to see level ball for Drizzile. This could go ahead and recover Incense to get him big Shady Dealings to get you a double dip, and exactly that's what we're going to see here. It's always nice to double up, and we're going to see the Escape Rope as that pivot option to move his Urshifu to the bench and give Reiji a bit of a headache here. And we're going to see Training Court, I believe, by the looks of things, being the selection.
Absolutely. And I'm right in thinking Isaiah used Power Pad to get Boss's Orders back into his deck already,
I think he chose to keep it in hand, so the Boss's Orders isn't currently available to him.
But he still has access to the Power Pad, if nothing.
The Power Pad, yeah, is available to him.
That's good, because he only plays one Boss's Order, so to get that second Boss's Orders play, he would have to use Power Pad.
Okay. He's just going to undo the 110 damage from Reiji, and that's the concession. I think Reiji can see that, oh, I see what you're up to. You're going to undo that damage that I poked on, and you can do this inevitably. You can do it again. The Power Pad wasn't played, so there was going to be the Training Court, recovering the fighting energy from Isaiah, coming in once again with the Gale Thrust, another easy prize, and it was just looking unsurmountable for Reiji there. It's already a really rough matchup, let's be clear. Isaiah is going to have the rub of the green here. As long as his deck is cooperating. Reiji's going to have to hope that in the second game he can put him in a more awkward position with slightly stronger starts, and again, starting in Game 2 is already a big deal for Arceus decks in general.
No, absolutely, and it's a tough matchup. I mean, we're sitting here going, hey, you can win in 2 turns with these elaborate plays, but, you know, the thing to remember is when pointing out these plays, there's always other options, and Isaiah was basically going, look, it's not the same, it's not that flashy, but actually, what if I just heal and knock out the beat?
Yeah.
Sure, I'm not winning in 2 turns with really dramatic attacks, but my opponent's basically doing nothing, and I'm, you know, gradually getting towards 6 prizes. It's not quite as fun. It is arguably even more effective. You're not digging for that special energy, that Rapid Strike energy. So you play the Cheryl, you heal up, get the kill on the Beedrill. You know what? 3 prizes to 0. Your opponent has no real attackers out on the board. You know, he's got a couple of Arceus, which could go into VMAXs. But if an Arceus VMAX hits the board, you're delighted if you're Isaiah.
Yeah, it's absolutely fine. And even though it wasn't the glamorous double spread KO there, dealing with the engine Pokemon. It was still a glorious turn, and still just pushing your way through the game and completely undoing all the damage that Reiji done up to that point is obviously a huge issue. I think that's one key difference with the Isaiah and the sort of American take on this Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX list compared to the likes of Gustavo, who plays Piers, and Tord, who's playing Octillery. They can't guarantee hitting these Rapid Strike energies, so Isaiah had to go with the safest route there rather than hope to just dig and draw into that Rapid Strike energy. When you have the safe play, just take it, especially when you're in a good matchup.
Absolutely, and I don't think well, Reiji scooped. We saw that he conceded the game because the reality is that it was never gonna go Reiji's way. That game was not going to be won by anyone but Isaiah. It's sad state of affairs, but it's the way it is. Now we look at the prizes. We've got 1 Sobble each. Nothing terrible. Raihan and Birdkeeper in training court for Isaiah is not ideal.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. There's nothing there that really makes me think, oh, their deck isn't going to work. So I suppose the question becomes, if you're Reiji here, what's your plan? You've gone through one game. It looked like a bad matchup on paper. It played out like a bad matchup. You know, it took 15 minutes. What's different this game? How do you navigate?
Well, already he's got an energy drop on Arceus, and that's more than his last first turn. And he was going second, so already it's a lot more pressure that Isaiah has to deal with. So, yeah, it's as good as it gets, really, for a early Arceus turn. And Isaiah has the debate around whether to play any of these cards first. He actually rips the Peonia out the gate as his opening supporter here before choosing to use Quick Ball or his Mew. So he's just going to see those 3 cards. Wasn't able to access those 2 supporter one-offs, but it may have even had that fighting energy in there, which would be huge for him because they only play 1 copy of fighting.
Ooh.
And it could have forced him to use Rapid Strike energy, which would have made Beedrill much more effective. So this Peonia could actually be huge. Yeah, it grabbed him the fighting energy. So this Peonia out the gate has been glorious.
Oh, I did not realize they were only playing 1 copy
just
of
the
fighting
one.
energy.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Because if you want to use that first attack on Urshifu that does 150 if you switch in from the bench, you need to keep an energy on there. And basic fighting is great because it turns off Beedrill. But if you're using a special energy to do that, I mean, you can't. You cannot use special energy to do that. So that would actually have changed Isaiah's entire game plan. They would have had to, really pivot here and go to some other attacker, a darkness-type attacker, things of that nature, to make sure that they weren't running into that. That could have changed the whole game.
Yes, but fortunately for Isaiah, it's a huge sigh of relief. He's been able to access that fighting energy straight away, and we are going to see Level Ball now grabbing Sobble immediately. It's always nice to take the Pokemon out your deck before using this this Mew, which I don't believe we've seen just yet. Oh, potentially it was. We're just making sure there's no cut here. Yep, and you can continue here for those 6 cards to see what we see off the Mysterious Tail. More ball search is typically what we're going to want from Isaiah. Unless it's a pivoting option and he has basic Dark in hand, he could go for that Keep Calling play.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see the pivoting option. We see the Scoop Up net coming down. You've used Mew. You've got what you need. You get it out the active. And now you get the energy, and Keep Calling is up. And that's brilliant. You've got 3 bench spaces left. You can search for 3 Rapid Strike Pokemon. So you're pretty much setting up your board as you like. You're doing it really nicely. I like this.
Yep, it gets extra Sobble down and even that second Urshifu now, so you are protecting yourself from even an aggressive Boss's Order line from Reiji, who incidentally is not playing the Zigzagoon in his list, so he couldn't reach 220 damage regardless. He does, I'm afraid.
He's playing a one.
So yeah, you do need to get the double Urshifu down. Sobble does the job for you. It's a really, really great setup Pokemon here.
No, absolutely. I mean, I love Sobble. It's so weird. We've got the Sword and Shield base Drizzle with that Shady Dealings, which is great. And both the Inteleon are really good. The Shady Dealings and Sword and Shield, the quick shooting from Chilling Rain. But then we've got the Sobble from Chilling Rain, which is clearly even not in a Rapid Strike deck. I mean, even in not a pure Rapid Strike deck, if you just play 4 Rapid Strike Sobble, you can use 1 to get the other 3, and then your engine is going. And if you end the turn with, 3 or 4 Sobble, then you can use 3 or 4 Drizzle. And it's a rare game where you can use 3 or 4 Drizzle and you don't have a really good turn too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it means that you can, even with like the worst hand possible, you can at least get the Sobble gang out and have something to do in your turn. As it looks like the Keep Calling is going to be passing it over to Reiji now, who can begin to pick apart Isaiah's board. It's always one of those bad things to think about when You know, you could see the Starbirth Boss's Orders play this turn, but you still know that there's going to be an Urshifu response, most likely. Reiji is going to likely look towards a Boss's Orders play. I have to think that dealing with one of these Urshifus is going to be value for him. His alternate line is just taking a single prize KO this turn and working towards, again, Mustard or something like that, because his attackers are literally just Arceus and Beedrill. There's no other plays he can make here.
No. And that's kind of awkward. And when your attackers are Arceus and Beedrill, and your opponent isn't relying on special energy, so Beedrill's not that good, and you're not playing Dunsparce to protect Arceus from Urshifu, that's what really makes this such a bad matchup. You've got two attackers which are really good against the majority of the format, but this deck seems like it wasn't really expecting much Rapid Strike Urshifu, and that's something we see a little bit when we have players from other territories, you know, come and play in tournaments really outside of, you know, where they usually play, because I don't think Rapid Strike Urshifu is that big in Japan at the moment.
Possibly not. No, exactly. It's an archetype that's sort of come out of nowhere from Liverpool, and it feels like everyone's backed the deck. I think people are expecting maybe, you know, 5% of the field day one would have been Urshifu, but it seems like it's been much more than that. Or even if it has been just 5% of the overall field, it's been top players who have got a lot of practice in with the archetype and are going deep in this tournament.
Absolutely, and that's the problem. You can be a great player on a great run at a tournament, but if you come up against a deck for which you're not prepared, you end up with these kind of matchups. So for Reiji, it really is, how good can my start be? Can I start taking prizes with this Arceus? Can I disrupt Isaiah's board enough? Because, you know, if you get a couple of key KOs nice and early, that can swing the entire game.
We are seeing the Mustard for that Beedrill coming in. We're also going to see a Quick Ball now. Probably going to get another Arceus to attach to here. The Starbirth can do the rest in terms of making sure that he has an attack being launched this turn to initiate that prize race, but also power up another attacker on the bench. Let's see what other Pokemon or other card I think he takes out of the deck here, setting him up for next turn. He has to assume that Isaiah has a Gale Thrust available to him with a Mew and a couple Sobbles down. It's very likely that he'll be shady dealing towards whatever he needs. So down to Reiji to really come up with a plan here. Possibly the Big Charm could be his best option. Again, force extra damage output from these Urshifu. That could be the best thing. If that's already in hand, I'm not sure what else he goes for outside of maybe just another Sobble. Yeah, just keep his board as wide as possible.
No, and I like this. This seems good to me. Isaiah, you know, did not get an energy on that Urshifu last turn.
Did not go for the Big Charm. It's actually like a really helpful card because Isaiah is choosing not to play the Zigzagoon. So it could have been helpful. I guess there's always the choice.
There's a one-off choice spell.
Well. Yeah.
This makes it quite easy for Isaiah here now, because all we need, you know, we've already seen one Drizzle just hit the board there. We're just looking for a VMAX and an energy. Oh, and a.
I mean, yeah, we know the fighting energy is in hand. He could easily go ahead and find some scoop-up net plays as well here to get things going. He is eyeing up the Cynthia's Ambition, one of the supported cards you typically see alongside single prize heavy decks, but this is just a one-of in the archetype to help after a Keep Calling. It's exactly this moment where it's going to be helpful because it can really help fill out your hand and give you a lot of options here.
Absolutely, lets you draw until you've got 8 cards in hand, gives you a lot of good cards, and it's that kind of card that you don't play, you know, in a single prize deck. You can afford to play it as a 4-of because you're going to be playing it turn after turn. In a deck like this, you cannot play it as a 4-of, but when Inteleon line is out, when Drizzle's there, well, all of a sudden, you can. You can play it as a 1-of because you know you're going to be able to draw it. So once again, we've seen a situation where your opponent takes a quick early game KO and it actually ends up working in your favor.
Yep, and I think it's going to be another levelable pre the Cynthia's Ambition. I would quite like to see this Drizzle just get held, to be honest, because it can give you options post the Cynthia to help you get over the line here. And that's exactly what we're going to see here. I think it's a 6-card draw for Isaiah. Then he's also got the Mew and a Shady Dealings after this. So you'd have to think that he's going to get the VMAX here for a big 2-prize knockout.
Oh, absolutely. That's got to be the play. There's no Big Charm, so you're not going for your choice bout to try and offset that. And, like, it feels bad because Reiji went and KO'd a Sobble. That's not that big a deal.
No.
And then Isaiah's going to come back and take out an evolved, a V-Star with free energy on. You're taking 2 prizes rather than 1. You're taking a lot more resources off the board. But as we've been saying through this game, what's the alternative? Reiji basically has to play this game going, I am going to take as many prizes as I can, as fast as I can. And I'm going to really hope that my opponent doesn't have the response. I don't have a Dunsparce option.
No.
I don't have another attacker other than Beedrill, who, let's face it, is not good enough. So I have to it has to be one of those games where I hope my opponent doesn't put together what they've got. It's not a great game plan.
No, it's one of those things, especially the way this Inteleon deck has been built. They have so much consistency.
Yeah.
They are pouring with consistency, and they're just not going to slow down at all here. As I was able to pick up the Scoop Up Net now with that Drizzle that he banked in his hand before the Cynthia's Ambition, so we're easily going to see a strong turn here. We can also see a Quick Pull thinning out a Dark Energy, which is far less useful in this matchup than the one Fighting Energy that's going to help him see the distance, to be honest, as he can choose to get another basic Pokemon out here before going in with his VMAX and getting things done.
Absolutely. And when I say it's not a great plan, you know, all I mean by that is it's not a great plan, but it really is about the best you've got.
Yeah.
Scoop Up Net gets that Mew out of the active, so now we do see that Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX coming into the active. Gale Frost will do 150 damage. You double it with weakness for Arceus, does 300. Arceus only has 280, so we're going to see a nice clean KO here. And Isaiah is going to really start putting his stamp on this matchup. He's going to go up 2 prizes to 1. And Reiji here, and the thing is, Reiji has got a response. We do see an Arceus on the bench with energy on that can absolutely respond. I mean, you don't even need to VMAX, but you probably will here. The problem is, it doesn't really help you, because you are not one-hit KOing this VMAX, but with a couple of pivoting options, a VMAX will KO you.
Yep.
With still a single energy. So we've got Shady Dealers coming down here from Inteleon. Reiji's going to be able to search out any 2 cards that they like, or any 2 trainer cards that they like. It seems like we've got a Marnie here, which is nice for disruption, but this is an uphill battle. I mean, what else do you get off other than the Marnie?
Yeah, eyeing up Choice Belt by the looks of things to try and threaten more damage with your Beedrill potentially. Maybe even Evolution Incense. Oh, he's actually holding on to Ultra Ball, so he's got a way into the V-Star to make it at least not an easy, like, gust up into the active for the 2 prize KO with Rapid Flow, and then also taking a 1 prizer out of play all in 1 turn.
That would be worse.
So, yeah, I think he's definitely going to want to evolve this turn. We've already got the energy drop onto the Beedrill as well as an Air Balloon, so he has both attacking plays available. We're also going to see another Arceus come into play, then the Evolution Incense, and it's going to get another V-Star Pokemon, and then we're going to see the Marnie after all of this. Essentially, he said, you know what, Isaiah, you've built a massive hand right there with the Cynthia's Ambition. Let's just try and make it difficult for you to move this Urshifu out of the active position, and his best route for that is going to be trying to hit with the Marnie at the same turn.
No, absolutely. This has got to be the way it goes. You're trying to take prizes, you're trying to do damage, you're trying to slow your opponent down. And, you know, what you're trying to do here is get some damage on the Urshifu and, you know, force your opponent. Because if there's no Rapid Strike Energy, and we've said Isaiah does not have that easy route to Rapid Strike Energy like so many of these other decks do. If there's no Rapid Strike Energy, and if there are no big pivots into a Gale Frost, there is a situation where, you know, this Marnie forces Isaiah to Gale Frost for 30 for a turn or 2. That could be enough to, you know, just allow Reiji to build up this damage. It's a free hit KO with Beedrill, but if you can strand that Urshifu in the active, it will work.
Yep, and here we go. We see Reiji preparing that Choice Belt as well for next turn, as he's going to Persist Sting for 110. Oh, sorry, it's not the Persisting, it's the second attack. But yeah, coming in for the 110, ready for the Choice Belted Arceus next turn. But he's really just hoping that Isaiah can't formulate, especially a gusting play for an Arceus. He'd also be very afraid of any Cheryl gameplay that could go on here. Really, it's down to see if Isaiah has access to Big Shady Inteleon, where you can get a double dip of trainer cards, because that is just going to be way too much pressure to deal with. Let's see how the Marnie's done, as Isaiah seems to be debating his options here, even as a fallback plan. Ooh, looks like we're going to see the attach of basic Dark Energy and retreat into Mew. So Isaiah could just be settling for maybe just a Cheryl turn here. That's got to be what this indicates.
Yeah, there's not going to be an attack here. I mean, not really. There was no prize taken, so let's not put right hand on the board. He's used his attachment for the turn to retreat. So we're not going to see an attack here from Isaiah. What we're going to see is, I think Cheryl is absolutely a good shout, because with 110 damage on, that is potentially in range of an Arceus KO here. So I think probably a Cheryl and just kind of wait till next turn. And we saw this in game 1. Isaiah's not in a hurry.
No.
This isn't a game where Isaiah has to play absolutely perfectly because there's 2 turns, and if you don't win in those 2 turns, it's all over. It's a game where take your time, don't make mistakes.
No Cheryl at all, so just a really bad hand from that Marnie. By the looks of things. So there is a damaged Urshifu. This could be a window opening for Reiji here. If he can piece together a boss's orders play, and we know that there is going to be that Inteleon that he scoop up netted on the previous turn, he can pivot into his Arceus V-Star and attach that choice belt that he searched on the previous turn. He's going to be getting a really nice 3-prize KO and actually be in sight this game.
Absolutely, and there's a very big difference between they don't need to rush, they've got this under control, and that Marnie left them with no options.
That was really bad, and even the Mew didn't help out too much either. Couldn't access any of those evolution incense, which would have been absolutely huge. So yeah, and Isaiah wasn't even able to like do a scoop up net play to guarantee a Drizzle for next turn, anything at all. So that Marnie was absolutely horrific, and this is the window that we've been talking about this entire time. That's why Reiji hasn't just, you know, huffed and puffed and picked up his cards and gone home. You know, he's he's stuck into the game for this exact moment. It's just a small window, but he's going to try and make the most out of it here.
Absolutely. In game 1, he scooped when, you know, Reiji realized, I'm not going to win this game. I can see both our boards here. Now, what we actually see is a boss's orders onto the unevolved. And I really like this play.
Yep.
Because now we've got a 2-prizer and then a 3-prizer. And if you KO both the Urshifu, you win the game. There was no Cheryl last turn. Reiji just needs one more turn without a Cheryl, and this could actually genuinely work. All we need to see, you know, the Beedrill's got the air balloon, it can retreat. Nice. If we see a KO this turn and next turn, Reiji's going to win game 2.
Especially with quick shooting now as well, so he can start pinging down that VMAX at the same time as taking a KO this turn, or he could even protect the choice belt at the same time and just keep it in hand. These are both going to work out really well for him. This quick shooting is also going to be really relevant math here.
No, absolutely. I love the quick shooting in Inteleon. And this is what I mean about really, really good players. This is hard. Reiji does not want to attack with Arceus. We know this. But what Reiji's done beautifully here is just kind of time it with the little Beedrill poke and the Marnie and gone, right, there's a window where maybe I can. And this could all go horribly wrong still.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But there is a window here where maybe attacking of Arceus V-Star actually leads to a victory, because Reiji's built up a third one on the bench. So even if Isaiah gets a return KO here, that might not make that much of a difference. We need Cheryl here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a key card that Isaiah's looking for. Reiji did give him a training core option, which I think is a big deal because there's the one fighting energy in the discard pile. Let's see if this Mew can get Isaiah towards an evolution incense. That's got to be the key card he's looking for here. He'd slam it if he saw it, no doubt. So the fact that we haven't seen it straight away gives us an indication that it may be falling flat once again.
Oh, Isaiah scoops! We've got one game each, and we've only got 19 minutes left. He did not have the Cheryl, I think it's fair to say. But I mean, the Cheryl really was that huge. With the Cheryl, you heal up that Urshifu VMAX, and there is no way Reiji gets a KO on that 3-prize Urshifu, and Isaiah wins that game. Without the Cheryl, you either don't attack, give Reiji a free turn, that's really bad and probably going to lose, or you attack with your Urshifu, and then Reiji's got an Arceus ready on the bench to come in. And one thing I found really, really interesting when I was talking to Isaiah yesterday after the interview, I was saying, you know, about his concession. Might even have been in the interview.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was. And he said, yeah, I scoop really early some games because time is not our friend. We've got 50 minutes. It's hard to get free games in. There were games, Isaiah told me, where he'd just look at his opening hand and go, nah, mate, game 3.
Yeah.
I've won game 1. I get to go first in game 3. I'm not going to win. And I love this play because top 8 is so tight in this tournament. We are going to see players with phenomenal records who do not make it into top 8. Ties are not your friend. If you're going for top 8, you don't want a tie. And what we saw there was a game where it was starting to get out of hand. Isaiah was not definitely going to lose, but probably going to lose. Let's not lose in 3, 4, 5 minutes time. Let's lose now, go to game 3. I get to choose whether to go first or not. And it's not what you love to see, but Isaiah knows as well as we do, this is a very favourable matchup. Yep. Let's go to game 3, choose whether to go first or second. I like this play.
Yep, swallow your pride and just move on to that game 3. Give yourself enough time to win this game. We are seeing straight away Isaiah leading off with Sobble, Reiji with his Arceus. Isaiah once again has chosen to go first. The deck doesn't play many like early game cards, but it is again not under too much threat from Reiji in those openings. We're going to see an energy attachment to Sobble and just a pass.
Ooh.
This is why so often you see the deck likes to go second for keep calling. But the good news is Reiji cannot accumulate a KO unless there's a mustard coming down.
Yeah, Beedrill. Beedrill could end the game. If we see turn 1, and we've seen a lot of turn 1 Beedrill, Joe, since we sat down in these chairs an hour or so ago.
Oh, okay, there's an energy drop. We're fine. Isaiah can breathe a sigh of relief. It's not over just yet.
Okay, there's definitely not going to be a turn 1 Beedrill.
No. Well, even if it is, it's not going to do anything, right? It can't attack, so... yeah, we're all good. Double turbo coming onto the Arceus. It can still be a Trinity charge. This is still super relevant. Reiji can thin his deck quite nicely, and he's holding on to Ultra Ball again for next turn, so he can piece together his own Arceus V-Star. Let's see if Isaiah actually has any actions at all this turn, or if it's just going to be keep calling.
Is there any part of Isaiah you think might have said, well, if I go first, I can get the Urshifu down with an energy on?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I can absolutely start going after those Arceus sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, it completely makes, like, you understand the reason why Isaiah was going for this route, right? You think that if you get that energy drop onto Urshifu early, you're just pole vaulting ahead and you can be using your VMAX turn 2 aggressively. But in this case, we're just going to see the keep calling. He did get an extra Sobble down, which is no bad thing. And the Rapid Strike energy going on to Sobble as well. Just wants it out of his hand, I think, because you never really want to play those unless you're doing some rapid flows. And Isaiah's been proactively using Gale Thrust as much as possible this series.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Gale Thrust is absolutely the play here. It gets a one-hit kill on Arceus. The numbers and maths works out so well. I mean, he can attack with the Rapid Strike Inteleon. Doesn't do very much, but it is technically an attacker. So, you know, if that Sobble ends up being your Rapid Strike, it could make a difference.
Just one Urshifu. Reiji does have the technology to get a 220 damage KO here. He has Starbirth online. He also has Ultra Ball, I believe, and Energy in hand, so he can Starbirth for bosses and Boss's Orders already in hand. He's got basically everything already to get the KO, as long as Zigzagoon isn't prized, which it's not, and he has access to Choice Belt. He can take a 2-prize KO on the only threat on the board right now.
If Reiji wins this best of 3, I'm going to be seriously impressed. Because we sat down and we looked at the deck list and we were like, oh, this should be, you know, this should be heavily favored for Isaiah. And, you know, people watching the stream have seen it. This is a matchup where Reiji is relying basically on an attacker which does very little in this game, and an attacker which is weak. And it's working. It's actually working. We've seen the boss's orders. Here comes up the Arceus V-Star. And we're hitting 200 here.
Yeah, he's pre-Starbirth as well, right? So he can just go ahead and grab Choice Belt whenever he wants to.
Yeah.
He's also going to Mustard this turn by the looks of things.
Well,
I think he's at one card in hand. Yeah, like, why not? Get the Beedrill down while you can. We're going to see the 1 damage ping here.
We're going to need a scoop up net. Because Arceus hits 200. It's often 180 because of double turbo energy. But Reiji's not used double turbo energy. Just used that charging up from the Arceus V last turn. So scoop up net on the Zigzagoon would absolutely work. Or a Choice Belt. Either would be fine. And to be fair, do you ever really want to drop the damage on the bent Sobble?
No, I mean, this is the best time to use the...
Oh, he's even got to scoop up there.
Yeah, he grabbed it from the Starbirth. He is going to put 2 damage counters on to the Urshifu. The Training Court allows the attachment on the bench pre the Trinity Nova. Actually, Reiji didn't even... Oh, he played the boss's orders this turn, of course.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, there was definitely no mustard, but he's keeping his hand size nice and low with options, though. But taking the only threat out of play is great news. And Isaiah's only really response here would be like putting another Urshifu down and making a right hand play, but we know that's not possible because he only has access to this 1 Urshifu for the remainder of the game, and even recovering it is via Clara.
Yeah, that is not awkward. You only got the 1 Urshifu down. It's been KO'd. The other one's in the prizes. And right now, you've got to think that Reiji is absolutely in the driver's seat for this game. And this is kind of like a worst-case scenario for Isaiah. You won game 1, absolutely going away. And we're all watching it going, well, yeah, you're hitting weakness on Arceus. Your opponent isn't playing either of the counters. Their only other attacker is Beedrill that really doesn't do very much in this matchup. And yet, The combination of Marnie and that poke with B-Drill was just enough in Game 2. And Game 3, this is worst case scenario for Isaiah.
Absolute worst case scenario, yeah. He really doesn't have much in terms of pressure at all this turn. Like, what's his best play? Trying to do like a Hooper attack or something, whilst also clawing back the Urshifu and hoping there's not another boss's orders from Reiji? Like, that's the best thing you can do. It's really not a feels-good play.
You've got to work towards an Urshifu here. Urshifu is how you win this game, so...
The Clara.
Whatever you do, you've got to work towards an Urshifu. Now, we do see...
Just a strafe. It's going to be a retreat from the Sobble, gets it back with a training court, and just a strafe for 60.
I don't mind. So what does that do with them?
I mean, it's better than passing, right? You may as well do it. And
and it does open up G-Max Rapid Flow.
Yeah, of course.
It is now in range. A G-Max Rapid Flow will do 240 and KO, potentially the Zigzagoon or a Sobble on the bench. So you've got to think, if he went to the effort of retreating for the strafe, that's probably what he's thinking.
Yeah, and you'd prefer the energy on the Urshifu anyway, right, rather than just passing it over. So definitely an intelligent bit of play there, and can once again breathe a sigh of relief that there's no boss's orders, choice belt combination here. It's just going to be a professor's research, so Isaiah will have the Urshifu safe this turn, but Reiji is going to go up to a third prize at the very least here, and he's also holding on to a pretty decent hand. He's got 2 Arceus ready to rumble. Will he make the call to retreat here to try and make the Urshifu have a little less hope of doing a rapid flow play? No, he's just content to take the 1 prize and passes it Isaiah's way. The rapid energy on the Sobble was potentially a pivot option, so he could do a Gale Thrust that little bit easier, but instead he's opting to go Drizzile instead. So could easily be seeing the Inteleon come down, also some Scoop Up Net action.
Yeah, and I kind of like this. Isaiah, it seems like that you had a very, very bad start, but he's got himself the VMAX. And this is huge, because we've seen Reiji doesn't have a great option for dealing with a VMAX. In the previous game, it was poke with B-Drill, play Amani, cross your fingers. That is not really how you want to deal with it. We could absolutely see us, well, actually, we couldn't see a similar thing here, because we can't have Mustard and Marnie coming down in the same turn. So it's getting a little bit awkward now. Reiji had that amazing start, getting the KO on Urshifu, but Isaiah's got the Urshifu back. He's got it up to a VMAX. We do see Inteleon coming down here. If Isaiah could get towards that Rapid Strike energy, I do think that would be a huge deal.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for him and speed up in this race that little bit and really help him out in terms of catching up, especially in time, because we only have 10 minutes remaining as the clock ticks, and we're actually going to see Energy Search as one of the selections just to get into the discard pile for a free Quick Ball here. Of course, free because there's a training court that can recover this for him, so pretty handy to have that available. And what's this Quick Ball going to be grabbing here? Looks like he's eyeing up. Is that a Persimmon that he's gone for here?
Quite possibly. It doesn't really do a huge amount unless he's really going to be trying to track down that other Arceus, which it could be where you're going, trying to make sure you can KO that on the bench if need be. As it stands at the moment, we do see Drizzile coming down.
Yep, has to get rid of his Rapid Strike energy because he's no longer a Rapid Strike Pokemon. But we are going to see a Raihan coming in now as the supporter. So that's what Isaiah was doing. He was doing a bit of a delicate dance here, just so that he could get an energy into his discard pile to activate Raihan now to guarantee that Rapid Strike energy from the deck. So he's re-established a pivot option for him, and he's getting the maximum value. Oh, it's the Mew by the looks of things, which makes a lot more sense than the Persimmon. And we could easily be seeing the Rapid Flow here for a 3-prize knockout.
Absolutely, and as far as it goes, that is pretty good, and I love where Isaiah's going here. We do see the KOs, and that damage from the strafe, absolutely relevant from last turn. We do see the KO on the Sobble with the energy, which it's kind of had to be the target. We know how good Drizzile is when you get evolving into it, so...
You can actually take another prize here. You really should do.
Yeah, I would take a third prize.
And it's a boss, which is a great one to take. Fantastic. Over to Reiji then. Like, what really can he do outside of like piece together an attack? A Mustard has to be one of the things on his mind at this point, just to establish some more attackers. But at this point, Isaiah's on 3 prize cards. The Beedrill is vulnerable. Everything's vulnerable, essentially. Arceus is just as squishy in the face of fighting-type Pokemon. I think Isaiah's done enough here to still be easily in range to close out this third game.
Absolutely, but Isaiah's not winning the game next turn, almost certainly. So, I mean, if you're Reiji, what you do here is you hit Urshifu, and you have something on the bench. That could be another Arceus, that could be a Beedrill, because we saw he can 2-hit KO. Reiji can 2-hit KO here.
Yep.
So what you need to do is, as far as I'm concerned, is you need to set up a 2-hit KO.
Marnie Smack.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah, cross your fingers. Marnie Smack is what won him that second game, right?
And you need to pivot the Urshifu. The Urshifu needs to get to the bench and back again with an energy. There's no backup Urshifu that could come up instead. So this is the play for Reiji here. You hit into the Urshifu, you play the Marnie, and you cross your fingers as tight as you possibly can. If a Cheryl comes down, the game's probably over. If he can pivot, the game's probably over. But that is your option here.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And play to your outs just like he did in that second game here. Is he able to grab at least another Arceus down? He was able to Training Court and put the energy back into deck so that he can do the awesome attachment play with that Trinity Nova as well. So yeah, he's done all he can do. And again, it's time to cross your fingers with Marnie and see if it does the job for him once again.
Yeah, it's really not, and I like this place. You've got the ordinary rod.
Nice.
Well, I was thinking, do you have the V-Star? Do you have enough energy in your deck? Because, this plan really relies on you having the V-Star next turn and having enough energy in the deck to accelerate from your Arceus V-Star to your benched Arceus. And I kind of prefer this over the B-Drill because 200 twice is definitely enough. You know you're losing to a Cheryl, and you know you're losing to a double pivot. And to be fair, the Sobble's got an energy on, so any real pivot will do. But it's the best you can hope
boy,
for.
Isaiah not going to be slowed down at all. He's got Evo Incense for big old shady dealings. This is the kingpin of the deck. It allows you to tutor all of these one-offs at the perfect moment. Looks like he's eyeing up Cheryl here, so he could be combining this with some pivot options. Escape Rope would be a great choice here so that he could come in and take a prize or two on anything and just get a big Gale Thrust in on a completely fresh healed Urshifu. He should be wrapping up this game here with the one Shady Dealings.
Absolutely, and that's why it was crossing fingers time for Reiji, because it wasn't the best plan in the world, but that was about what you could do. Now that we've got that air balloon, you just retreat into Inteleon. You've got your scoop up net. Presumably we're going to see Cheryl come down here to heal all of that damage off. You attach an energy, you get a one-hit KO, and at that point Reiji's got to try and deal with a fresh Urshifu VMAX, and there's nothing in his deck that can do it. It had to be a 2-hit KO and trying to stop Isaiah in between. And it worked last game. It didn't work this game.
Yeah, Marnie giveth, Marnie taketh away. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do him dirty twice. I mean, that's really what Reiji was hoping for. He was sort of living on a prayer this entire series because he just has no tech cards, not many things that can impact Isaiah's board, and simply put, Isaiah was able to draw well enough in this third game to get over the line, as he is really very close to that victory now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can imagine what it was like as Isaiah taking those cards off of Marnie, just being like, don't do it again. Don't do it again. Just give me something. Give me Cheryl, give me a Bull Search for Inteleon, R12. Got what he needed. So we do see the Mew hitting the bench here, and we do see the announcement of the attack. Isaiah's taking 2 prizes, goes down to 1 prize remaining, and the reality of the situation is Reiji cannot take 3 prizes this turn. There's nothing in his deck that can KO that Urshifu unless Isaiah leaves special energy on, which he hasn't, and Isaiah is now 1 prize away from winning the game. So maybe there's some kind of disruptive route here, but I mean,
Palpad Marnie reroll time? I guess that's about the best thing you can do.
You still need a double pivot to take the last KO.
Yeah. And you know that Isaiah's holding on to that Shady Dealings and Inteleon. You need to stop him doing that at pace. So we are going to see the scoop up net for the Drizzle to get that Marnie again, no doubt. And let's spin the wheel one more time, Reiji. He can guarantee that V-Star now come in with his final Arceus and just try and put some pressure on this Urshifu. And yeah, we'll see what the Marnie does.
I mean, honestly, we're kind of in the same position we were in last
it's
term.
the same again.
Whereby that Urshifu is absolutely in range, and the Marnie's come down, and it's a case of if Isaiah heals, he's going to win the game. If Isaiah pivots, he's going to win the game. But, you know...
Fingers crossed he doesn't, right? That's all Reiji can do here, you know?
Depends if it Reiji or Isaiah, really.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we do see this coming in here, and, you know, we've got So the Arceus is now going to come into the active. We're going to
made our play,
attack.
right? Yeah, we've made the play. The Marnie was the only disruption Reiji could really offer here, trying to accumulate that 2-hit KO. I think he's got things like Level Ball for next turn as well, so he could try and work towards that boss's orders, even if Isaiah doesn't have it and retreats. Reiji would be able to still chase down the Urshifu, but let's see how the Marnie has treated Isaiah this time around. Will he be able to close the game this turn? We're looking for a pivot option to get him over the line here.
But because there's an air balloon on the Urshifu, all we would need in a scoop-up net would do it. We do see a fairly confident retreat
here we go.
into the...
Looking with Mew to see if we can hit it by the looks of things.
We got Evolution Incense, that's all he needs.
Yep. Shady Dealings can allow Isaiah to go ahead and grab any sort of card, Escape Rope being one of them. That gets him back into his Urshifu VMAX, and that was much more of a sweat than Isaiah wanted, but he's got himself another precious win.
Yeah, 2-1 win for Isaiah there, and quite frankly, that series was so much closer than it really seemed like it had any right to be. When you look at the matchups on paper, that really looks like Reiji has just walked into a near enough auto loss, a game where neither of your attackers do anything particularly relevant, and you're being one-hit KO'd for a single energy, and yet 2 turns in a row, he forced Isaiah to have the perfect card, and Isaiah did. Oh, that was a very good set.
And I'm emotionally drained after that set. You can see how much it means for Isaiah. And it's one of those things where you know that you should be favoured, and when things are just not going your way, it's so frustrating. But he kept a cool head and was able to get over the line there. And again, it comes down to that fast scoop. Not being too bold and too proud to scoop early, gave himself enough time to win that third game and wrap up the series.
Absolutely. There wasn't that long. We had, what, 3 or 4 minutes or something on the clock when that game ended. If Isaiah had gone, I can win this in game 2, and end up losing a long game 2, that may well have ended up being a tie. And, you know, if Isaiah ends up in top 8 or in top 16, then, you know, that one decision to concede that game a little bit earlier might literally be the difference between making top 8 or not, making top 16 or not. So, you know, it's not just playing the game and playing to cards and playing to your outs. Sometimes it's those other decisions of when to give up the game, whether to go first or second. These are really important decisions. And that decision to go first for Isaiah in that final game, that did look like it could come back to haunt him a little bit.
Yeah, it was shaky, but he did eventually get over the line, and you got to respect it. And also a huge shout out to Reiji, who basically came in with a techless deck in a really awkward matchup, and he still put on a great show, was able to steal one game and brought it close as well in that last game. It was the Celebrations Mew coming in clutch at the end there as well. Great shout out, great decision by the team to add that